Hey everybody, welcome back. Doing something different today. I have a guest today doing an interview today. And for those that may not know, I am what is called a therapeutic game master. And because I am a therapeutic game master, I thought I'd bring on another therapeutic game master who is seeking to do the very same things. Owen Kerr is with us today. Owen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And so I thought we'd get started, Owen, by just talking about a little bit about your background. And by the way, we're going to define what a therapeutic game master is here in the context of our discussion as well. So those that are watching, don't worry, we haven't left that important part out. But Owen, tell us a little bit about your origin story. How did you get involved with role-playing games?
Way back in the Stone Age, some of our viewers may have heard of the science fiction book club. I was never real interested in, 12 albums for a penny, but 6 books for $1. Oh yeah, down to clown with that. And so one of them that came up was this book called Fantasy Wargaming, The Highest Level of All by Bruce Galloway. And if you don't have a copy, it's a little treasure. So I got it. I had never heard of wargaming, fantasy or otherwise, picked it up. It's completely unplayable. I didn't know it at the time. It's completely unplayable, but it is a wonderful, wonderful, I'm still mining it for ideas. And it did mention this thing called Dungeons and Dragons in there somewhere and how it was kind of unsatisfactory. So I found some like-minded individuals. We started a game club at our high school. Like a lot of people got into gaming in high school and played D&D and all the old classics, Gamma World and Champions and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Got to college, did it some more, and I was not one of these guys who ever like faded out. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I used to play D&D for X amount of time, but I was very unsatisfied with the whole D&D thing. I got into the Society for Creative Anachronism and I started hitting people with sticks and started asking things like, how does armor work? How does damage work? Got into Rollmaster for my sins, and then graduated to 7th C, which still has one of the most elegant systems, 7th C first edition, still has one of the most elegant systems ever. And then I bumped into Powered by the Apocalypse. About that time I started teaching. My background, my degree's in theater. All my family are educators though, so I got into teaching, and I started game clubs at every school where I ever taught. And
of course you did.
Yeah. And of course, there's like 6 or 7 kids who this has just become their life. You have just opened this horizons to them, and that's all they want to do is game. And strangely enough, I ended up teaching back at my alma mater. So I didn't start the game club there. I restarted it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, oh, hey, how about that? So full circle. Yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
Well, that is once again, I think we've played similar games. Certainly remember Star Frontiers. Certainly remember playing Gamma World, and all that. So, what leads you then? First of all, tell us what is, for our audience who does not know. I know because I is one. But what is a therapeutic game master?
Therapeutic game master is an assistant. You have a clinician who's got some patients in counseling, and they're working on a tool set, or they're working on some skills. And so Dr. Anthony Bean, when he started Geek Therapeutics, he's realizing with the geek stuff, we have this entire vocabulary, this entire mindset that's already out in the cultural zeitgeist. If you're talking to the kid who likes Avatar and you say, hey man, you're being a real Zuko here, you got to be more of an Uncle Iroh on this one. Oh, you don't have to say anything else. You've got this entire paradigm that you can jump into.
That's right.
Also, as it was pointed out, your brain can't tell the difference between emotions, or it can't tell the difference between emotional sources. So you read the book and it's sad and you cry, and you watch the movie and then you trip over your dog and you're sad and you cry. Your brain can't tell the difference between that. So again, tapping into that, a client could be working through some anger management, or even something simple like self-advocacy. one of our compatriots, she loves to tell the story of how she had a bunch of junior high girls who were working on self-advocacy. So you run the game and you give them opportunities to practice their tool sets. So the ladies were adventuring and doing whatever. And the Baron's like, oh, I'm terribly impressed by all of you. I'm going to give you a boon. What do you want? Oh no, self-advocacy. We got to, okay. So you can put people in situations where they can practice their tool sets in safety. Nothing's bad's going to happen if you ask the Baron for the wrong thing.
Right.
But you get the practice. So that really appealed to me. And as I am a success story for both therapy and gaming, and as a writer and as a designer, the whole shared storytelling thing, we're the only species we know of that tells stories, and we tell stories to make sense of our lives. So if I can tell some stories with these clients that lets them make sense of their lives in context, it's all there. It's a perfect storm.
Right. And that's true of, doing it in community as well with other people who are similar situations or things like that. And so is that what drew you to becoming a therapeutic game master, was simply saying, look, here's my background, here's a skill set, here's something that kind of goes together. And mostly, as we discussed, I think you enjoy obviously using this with teenagers.
Yes. Well, again, I don't remember where I bumped into the concept, but when I jumped on the Geek Therapeutic stuff and I started looking at the roster of Therapeutic Game Masters, one of them's my old buddy from Phoenix, Ben Warner, and he's out there. And he's like, oh, I was like, Ben, oh, right on. And then, and of course, he's pursuing his degree in education now. And then John Wick. I was lucky enough to live in Phoenix for several years, and John would show up. And for those of you who don't know, John Wick, master game designer responsible for, Seventh Sea and Legend of the Five Rings, and brilliant. I mean, just casually brilliant. He was also involved, and I'm like, So I called Ben, and I'm like, hey, Ben, tell me about this therapeutic game master thing. And he says, I don't know anyone who has a better skill set for this than you, teacher, actor, voice actor, writer, storyteller. That you go talk to Dr. Tony. This is like literally perfect for you. And the fact that I like helping people, most folks know that teachers spend a lot of our time counseling the kiddos, and again, when you see them working through some of these big fields, and coming to some resolutions, it's really beautiful.
It is. And the experience that I've had is running, and I run quite a bit for teenagers as well. In fact, I just had two dads and their daughters. I taught them how to play and facilitated a game. And boy, I tell you what, the best thing about it is when the lights go on, that they discover that they can do something that they go, oh, can I do that? I said, I'll give you an example. One of the daughters was playing a warlock. I said, well, tell me about, your patron. Says, yes, I have she just made it up on the spot. Says, yes, the patron of the pig. I said, oh, the pig. Okay. So the pig gives you the power to do what you want to do. I said, great. I said, and she said, well, I want to shoot Eldritch Blast. I said, well, what does the patron pig, what does the Eldritch Blast look like? And she goes, well, first there's a giant oink. It goes, oink. And it just flies out, and there's a pig's head that flies towards the victim and is followed by a stream of pink magic that's following in behind it.
I love that.
And I thought to myself, man, that's the jam right there, is when a kid can become so free as to imagine for themselves something that they create for themselves. That's the best thing for me, is just watching kids just get it.
And I'll tell you one, I had a junior high school student who had never played any role-playing games before change my entire game forever. Because one of the systems I play, Powered by the Apocalypse, they say, if you don't feel like making a decision right now, GM, let the players make it. Okay. Yeah. And they bumped into some goblins, typical, dungeon crawl. They bumped into some goblins. And he said, "Oh, what are goblins like?" I said, "I don't know. What are goblins like?" And he's like, "Oh, they're rich." "Oh, are they? Why are they rich?" "They're merchants and traders." "Oh, okay." So in my head, the city went blomp, and there's like the goblin quarter, and like goblins are just folks now, right? "Oh, have you been down to Globnar's? Man, if you want some fried rat, Globnar, mwah, chef's kiss," right? And so they jump out to attack the goblins, and the goblins, "Oh, stop! We'll call the city watch. What are you doing? Police." Like, "What?" And the one steps forward and is like, "Excuse me, sir, we're lost. We went down this thing, and do you know the way out?" And long story short, I took the idea that goblins are just folks, which became this massive fulcrum to a huge plot thing that I was playing in my weekly session.
Yeah.
And it just blew the doors off of all these veteran players. But the one thing I told all of the other therapeutic game masters is, as soon as you give a player that kind of decision, "Oh, what's the king like?" "Oh, I don't know. What's he like?" "Oh, he's skinny. He's one of those skinny guys who like eats all the time and he just never gets fat." And "Oh, what's he into?" "Books. He loves books." "Oh, really? What kind of?" "Oh, old books, older." He doesn't even care. Just books. "Okay, so king is and skinny who eats all the time." Okay. But the thing is, now it's not my story. Now it's his story, and
Right.
now, or her story, or their story, and all the other kids are like, "Yep, that's what he's like. Yep, he said it. That's what it's like." So now you've got 100% buy-in from not only the one who made the decision, and he's going to be back next week, but also all the rest of them are like, "Oh, when do we get to make a story thing?" And it becomes a truly shared storytelling. And there's nothing more powerful than giving these brilliantly creative individuals free reign, just run. And I have a little background in improv too, and that whole yes and
Yep.
what are we doing now? "Oh, it's the pig blast." It's funny you should ask that, because that's always in my question is, "Oh, you're doing magic missile. What do those look like? Are they shards of light?" And again, just a little, every time you give them, some set dressing, you get so much more of that buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more than just I shoot a thing. It's more than a mechanic. It's
Right.
that tapping into that imaginative part of their brain that's just on fire at this point. I can't wait to see, because they're supposed to go to an old temple of Asmodeus, but it may be some sort of temple of the pig. I don't know yet. There may be something there that there's a
Nice.
connection there, because there's a goat. There's a goat, a god of cheese here in the mix here too. So we'll see about that. But
Yeah.
as we're tapping into that, it seems like we're making a normal transition here. But to some tips you may have for those that are watching. Says, look, I find it hard to run for teens. You and I, it's our jam. It's where we go. It's our happy place to help teens, let their brains kind of explode on these things. But there's a lot of people who stress out
Right.
over teenagers being at their table because for whatever reason, it makes them just the DMs uncomfortable. Do you have some tips then for some of the folks watching here that says, hey, don't stress out too much. Here's some tips for you to remember when you're DMing teens.
Yeah. First of all, teens are pretty chaotic just by nature. And they don't have a mean bone in their body. Typically, it's just like, "Hey, let's find a walrus," and you're like, "Okay, let's find a walrus." So if you can look into any kind of teaching videos on redirection, that's great, but let's get back over here. Second, relax. Okay, relax. Don't be too in love with your storyline, because they're going to hijack it. And let them run a few steps in any direction. And then, if you want to steer it back, you can, or none of us is as smart as all of us. They're going to come up with a great idea that you had. "Oh yeah. Oh, the prince is behind this, PRINC, and try to keep up with them. If you can take some improv classes, the whole yes and don't be in too love with the rule set. Okay, and don't be in love with your own storyline. Let them run. One of the reasons that I play the PBTA, the Powered by the Apocalypse games, is they're very player facing. You can declaim decision making, and the tagline is play to find out what happens. So my best story on that, I was backed into a homeschooling group. My players were 9, 10, 11, and 13. And when the 13-year-old is the voice of reason, you know you've got problems. So they're like, oh, we attacked the town guard. And the 13's like, no, don't attack them. We'll be outlaws and they'll murder us. Oh, okay, don't do that. And I had bumped them into they found a body that had been eaten by rot grubs. Okay. And so the 10-year-old's mom got a hold of me and said he was a little squidgy about that. I mean, these kids are talking about this all the time at the dinner table, you know, going to school, blah, blah. But he's like, yeah, he's a little, you know, could we tone down the bloodshed and gore a little bit? I'm like, the big bad guy is an ogre who eats children. What am I going to do? Okay, so between A and B, I was like, okay, why would the ogre be stealing children? He's got something to take care of that he can't do. A dog. He's got an old dog. He's got an old wolf, old warg, old warg. So he's stealing, and he's why can't he take? He's hurt. He's got a really bad hip, right? So okay, bad hip orc or ogre. Well, okay. So when they come busting in the original scenario, they find the cauldron with a bunch of shoes next to it. You know, complete horror. Well, they come busting in, and the one kid's brushing the wolf, and the other one's sweeping the floor, and the other one's making dog food. And I'm prepared for this huge boss battle, right? So ogre lurches to his feet, and he limps towards you, dragging his one leg. And the 11-year-old says, "Oh, he's hurt." And I'm expecting, oh, tactics, you know, get around him. And I said, "Yeah, he looks injured." And he's like, "I've got a healing potion." What? I've got a healing potion. Will he trade me the healing potion for the kids? Roll charisma. Max is it, of course, pulls it out right then, you know, maxing. And I was like,
That's right.
"Oh, excuse me, Mr. Ogre, will you take this?" And does it work? Try it. Glug glug. Oh, hey, full motion, you know. And so, you know, and of course, my wife is also a teacher at junior high, and she's listening in, and she's like, "Oh gosh, you know, problem solving, outside of the box thinking, and nonviolent solutions, this is wonderful." Same kid 3 sessions later threw a guy off a 12-story building. So it's like, you know, baby steps. But but
That's
I
a
was just
teenage
like,
brain for you.
exactly. But it was so beautiful to me that and I feel like if I had been locked into, no, this has to be a big boss battle, I wouldn't even have considered that. Oh, he slaps it out of your hand and, you know, murders you to death. And it's like, but that was so much more interesting to me.
Yeah.
So in regard to teens, as in everybody else, is if you trust your players, because they got to trust you. You know, if you trust your players and just say, okay, where's this going? You know, I'm fascinated. You want to buy a what? I want to buy 140 iron spikes. Let's go to town. This you know, if it's a bad idea, at least it's going to make a great story. You know, it's one of those things.
Yes.
So yeah, but just relax. Okay, just relax. You're the GM. You are going to be seen as an authority figure, which has got some tension to that. Don't be afraid. Oh, my one biggie for teens. Every player, every PC has got a skill called common sense. Okay. And they're all really good at it. Okay. So it's just like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you're like, roll common sense. Okay. And after you do that like 3 times, they're like, if he says roll common sense, that means we're about to do something really dumb. You know, so they stop rolling. And do I have to roll it? No. Well, when you want to change do you touch the fungus with your tongue? Is that, were you still doing that? Roll common sense. And it's a redirection. It's a gentle, that would be slightly inadvisable at this point, sir. But keep it flowing and say yes a lot, basically.
Yeah, I think it's excellent points there, Owen. I sure do appreciate that. And I hope those of you watching appreciate it as well, because if you're going to run for teens, everything that Owen just said is things that are practical things you can put in your game. They're just things that you have to develop as a DM, a flexibility, if you will, you know, for what's happening. One thing I did, I had a girl, one of the girls of the dads, she was a wizard, but she wanted to collect rats. I went, great, collect rats. She goes, yeah, but I would also like to disguise them. Well, we said, okay, does the general store have any doll costumes? I went, yes, it does. It's got some dolls in there. What would you like to do? It's got a chef. It's got a guard. It's got, all these different things. And so she is now costuming. She is now costuming her rats,
Mm,
and they've come into play. So,
sure.
once again, that whole thing about saying yes and the story they create is far better than the story you have planned. It's
Always.
it's just that simple. And if you're
Always.
willing to release that and go with it where it goes,
Right.
you as a DM will have more fun than
Yes.
whatever it is you planned. And
And
and be interested and curious about what your players come up with.
one thing I would suggest, and this is kind of a combination between the writing and the improv. When the player blurts out, "Oh, it's the prince who's behind this," like it's the prince who's behind it. Take all of their expectations and let them be right, like 80% of the time,
Yep.
but then put in that one surprise twist. They bust in on the prince. "Aha, you fiend." He's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And that's when the queen shows up. "Oh, seize them, the fools." And so they've been right, they've been right, they've been right, and now they're wrong. And it's
Yep.
basically a joke. You set up, change expectations.
Yep.
They'll think you're the most brilliant thing ever for repeating their ideas back at them and giving it a surprise twist at the end. It's magical. So yeah, have some fun with that one too.
Absolutely. Well, Owen, if somebody wants to ask more questions or anything like that, there's a way that somebody can get in contact. Obviously, those that are watching, you can leave some comments here. Maybe Owen will check that out, but maybe you're out there on social somewhere, especially if there's a clinician, by the way,
Yes, please,
watching
please,
that
please,
says, hey,
please.
I would love to have Owen as to work us alongside me to use role-playing games as an intervention.
Yes.
I'm sure Owen, wherever he is located, and also online, I'm sure he does that as well.
Yeah.
Be happy to work with you. Where can people get a hold of you, Owen?
Easily, it's going to be Linktree. Linktree, my stage name there is Chanted Evening.
Ah,
Chanted as in past tense of chant, evening, common spelling. So Linktree/Chanted Evening. It's got all my contact info and a few videos that I posted. And yeah, I when I started out as a pro GM, I had clients in 4 continents and 9 time zones. So you think your Friday night is hard to schedule for, but yeah, I would love to work with anybody. Just if I have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll need about 2 weeks advance notice.
sure.
But yeah, I'd love to work with any clinicians, anybody, anybody who has any question, any incipient GMs who are like, hey, that sounded interesting. Could you expound upon that? I've been known to in the past. So
Well, I will put your link down in the show notes below. So anybody that's watching, they can go and click on that, get all your information. And if you are interested at all in becoming a therapeutic game master, geektherapeutics.com. Correct me if I'm wrong, Owen. I believe that is the website. And I
mhm.
will put that down below as well. And but Owen, thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing and letting us get inside your mind a little bit about how to game and DM for teens.
I really appreciate the opportunity, boss. Thanks again.
Yeah, you're welcome. And by the way, don't forget, if you love this channel, don't forget to click the thumbs up button. Tell me you like the video and you want more of them. And if you want more videos like this, click the subscribe button. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.